How's everybody doing? Good evening, everybody. Let's all settle in before we get to class. Let's make sure. I just want to make sure everybody is ready for today. I hope everybody's doing all right. How was your evening? It's good to see everybody. Can everybody hear me? Let me make sure that it's not coming from my own end. Can everybody hear me? Can everybody hear me? Can anybody see me? Can everybody see me? Can everybody hear me? Just drop a yes in the comments before before we start. Okay, that is good. It's good to see everybody here. It's good to see everybody here. I can see some names I remember, some names I remember, some names I don't remember. But we're going to have a great class today. I hope everybody is good. Don't mind me, I'm just trying to get everybody warmed up for today. Make sure that we're all ready and we'll begin. I'm seeing people are saying they can't see me. Can everybody see and hear me? Or you can only see me? Okay, everybody can hear me, but nobody can see me. I'm sure it will appear on screen. I think I keep dipping in and out. But that's fine. All right. So, does everybody remember what I talked about yesterday? Does everybody remember what I talked about yesterday? All right. Okay. Does everybody remember what we talked about last week? At least in my class, before Mr. Sebastian took over the following day. Can everybody remember what I talked about last week? We talked about the content and copywriting, the basics, and I also told you guys to remember. Think about how you could, promote this class. I keep dipping in and out. Let me see. Okay, I see. Yes, yeah, we talked about content and copywriting. Yes. I can see all my students are remembering and bringing up what we talked about. That is good. Okay, so we're going to start the class at exactly 7:15, 7:14. I just getting ready. All right, Can everybody see me now? I'm sure everybody can see me now. This one, I'm very sure everybody can see me now. What's going on? Okay. So, yes, everybody can see me and hear me. All right. Let's begin today's class. Good evening, everyone. As you already know, my name is Oladipo Losin. I'm going to be your tutor for today. Not just for today. I'm going to be your tutor for this week. So this week, let's discuss what we're going to be talking about. I believe everybody can see me and see the slides as well, right? All right, that's good. Everybody should be able to see me and hear me. Good. All right, let's begin class now. I'm about to start. So this week, we are talking about writing fundamentals. We've talked about content and copywriting. We've given you the explanation of what the class was, what this class is about, what you're going to learn. Now, we're going to go straight into the main. You still, get more classes on writing, but you need to have a good fundamental understanding of writing. Just the thing we talk about, the whole gist, our whole up and down. This is it. We're going to talk about writing style and tone, grammar and punctuation, storytelling techniques, writing for different platforms. So that's what we're doing this week. You guys can go. I hope everybody can see what I'm sharing. See the screen, you can see we are talking about writing fundamentals, writing style, tone, grammar and punctuation, storytelling techniques, writing for different platforms. That has to be network. Anybody that is seeing I'm fluctuating, it's the network. Just bear with Nigeria. Okay, yes, that even reminds me. Before we start, drop your flag where you're coming from. If you're coming from outside of Nigeria, drop your flag. If you're coming from Nigeria, drop your Nigerian flag. Let's know who is from where for this class. If it's only Nigerians that are in this class, so that will speak small pidgin. Okay, that's good. So while everybody is getting in, let's start. Drop your flags, drop your flags, drop your flags, drop your flags, drop your flags. Wherever you're coming from, let's know where everybody is coming from. Okay, Nigeria, Lagos, Nigeria. I'm seeing a lot of my Nigerian gang. Gay. Where are you joining from? Drop your flag. That is really, really good. All right, so before we start, I'd like to remind everybody that attendance is going to be shared during our break by 8 o'clock. We're going to have a break by 8 o'clock where everybody will get to sign attendance. Then we'll move on to another topic. But remember, 8 o'clock, we're going to be... Somebody said Canada in Jesus' name. Yes, I believe it for you. Canada in Jesus' name. Yeah, so like I said, we're going to be starting now. 8 o'clock, we're going on a break. Everybody should remember to put in their sign the attendance. The attendance will go up at 8 o'clock. Let us begin. So, table of contents today. In this section, we're going to talk about what is the style of writing, what is the style in writing, and we are going to talk about the elements of writing styles. So you'll also understand what it means to put your own style in your writing. Finally, you're going to understand the different elements of writing. So that's what we're covering today. For today, we're going to be talking mostly about style in writing, how to put your own voice into your writing, your own swag. Let's use that word, put your own swag in your writing. It's important that as a writer, your voice, your own identity is seen. I remember a good quote. I've forgotten where it comes from, but the quote says, "We came to see an author. When we read a book, we come to see the author. But in the process of reading the book, we get to know the man or the woman behind the author." So as a writer, in as much as you're writing, whatever you're writing about, especially when it's something personal to you, we should get to know you without you telling us who you are. That's the best explanation I can give. You should get to know you without fully getting to know who you are. All right, so let's begin with our first slide. So, writing style and tone. So in today's lesson, we will take a look at the fundamentals of writing, starting in writing, and then tomorrow we'll continue on with tone, depending on how quickly we get through this bit. Let's see. So, the first thing we're going to talk about is what is a style of writing. So, what is a style of writing? As we've described, I'll describe it here. Writing styles may be hard to define, but there has to be something that separates Chinua Achebe from Wole Soyinka, Chimamanda, Ben Okiri, Basket Mouth, and Yuvonoji. And that is what a writing style is. It is something that is hard to define. It's hard to describe. To some level, it's ineffable. It's not tangible. You can't just say this is someone's writing style. But we know that it is there because not everybody writes the same. Half of the Yellow Sun and Things Fall Apart, or Purple Hibiscus and Things Fall Apart, are two different things that talk about similar things, but in essence, they are different. And it's the style of the writer. So, though two writers may dwell on similar themes, every writer expresses a unique writing style conveyed through elements like word choice, narrative structure, and the author's voice. But what is style in writing? Now, on some level, like I said, style is ineffable. It is also emergent. When you pass the elements of writing, you lose something that lives in how you put them together. So in this lesson, you'll be provided with some of the tools for honing your style in your own work. We'll analyze the different types of writing styles, look at examples of famous writers and authors, and suggest various ways to experiment with your own writing. The biggest thing I want everybody to take away from class today is, as a writer, especially as an up-and-coming writer, as somebody that is, learning how to write, I think it's important that we all experiment. That's going to be the key takeaway today. I think we should all learn to experiment as writers. Experimentation is important. Play around with different styles, different authors, mimic your favorite authors. We'll get into that, but like I said, the most important thing you should take out of today is experimentation. Experiment with the way you use words. Experiment with the way you describe different things. It's important. It's the way you express yourself can't just come out of nowhere. Expressing yourself takes time and practice. So throughout this course, at least this today's lesson, you're going to learn about how to get your own style. Of course, you can't take everything word for word direct. Again, if you were learning this and your style, like I said, I'm trying to develop your own style, trying to get you to develop your own style, and you were taking everything we've explained and you're using it to the letter, then you're not expressing your own style. You are just cramming the knowledge you have and putting it down. So like I said, if you're going to take anything away from today, learn that experimentation is good. Experiment with different styles of writing, experiment with different ways of expressing yourself, experiment with different phrases, different ways of using words. It's important. All right, let's move to the next slide. So, what is style in writing? Now, think of writing as the author's thumbprint, a unique and indelible mark of the voice and personality of the work. Your voice and your personality, they are paramount in whatever you're writing. If a writer's work is a house, style is what adorns that house. I love that. I love that statement there. Style is what adorns the house. The window blinds, that's the curtains, the doormats, the freshly painted walls, the garden, everything. Your house is just a structure. When you're writing, you will have the structure, what you're talking about. That's the house. Then how you get there? My mom always says something. She says, there's many ways to get to where you're going to. Just as in writing, there are different ways and styles of writing. But how you get there is almost as important as the story you're telling. Because whatever you're writing, how you convey that message. I know it's a very funny thing. Many people underrate writers, but it is the most important job in the world. Let me put it like that. Everybody else can say whatever they want to say, but we writers, we know our job is the most important one in the world. Because no matter where you go, you will always meet words and context. The way people talk, it's influenced by writers. Let's use a very good example. Okay, let's use this. Many of us grew up watching cartoons. I'll use myself as an example. The way I talk has been influenced a lot by the cartoons I watched. And those cartoons were written by writers. The words I use up till today, a lot of the words I use, they were coined from cartoons that I watched as a young kid. That was what developed my own style. So if anybody sees my writing, sometimes it can be a little comical and exaggerated at times. But that's because my own voice, my own style, my own personality is a little comical. It's a little exaggerated. Let me exit the full screen and make sure. Is everybody following along? Is everybody following along? Because I'm going to do a lot of talking and I want to make sure that everybody is following along. Just in the comment section, whatever is going on, have you been able to hear? Have you been able to see? Ignore me now. Let's leave me out of it. Me, I'm not that important today. The lesson is the most important thing. So if you're able to see the screen, if you're able to see what I've written down for you guys, then it's important. Yes, style is an author's thumbprint. You can keep that one. It's not my own. I took it from somebody else. But yes, it's your thumbprint. It's what identifies you as a writer. It's what separates Wole Soyinka from Chinua Achebe, from Chimamanda, like I had said, from writing. This is a very good example. That is why Basket Mouth and Bovi are not, they don't tell the same jokes, because they have different experiences. They have different ways of putting information down. There's a reason why I put Basket Mouth. If we go back to our previous slide, I want to show you guys something. There's a reason why I put Basket Mouth and Yvonne Orji. These are two Nigerian comedians. Basket Mouth is based in Nigeria. Yvonne is, if anybody has watched, has anybody seen Insecure? Everybody's seen Insecure. Has anybody seen Insecure by Issa Rae? Issa Rae is a very talented writer as well, but we're not dwelling on American writers today. We're talking about Nigerian writers and some other foreign writers. But Issa Rae, she did Insecure. So Yvonne Orji was her best friend. She acted as, I've forgotten the name of her, the character Yvonne acted as. But Yvonne is a comedian. She's a stand-up comedian. And one of the things that many people underrate with stand-up comedians is that most of their jokes are written down. They don't just go on stage and freestyle. As much as they make it look like they go on stage and freestyle, the best comedians, they have their jokes written down, but they have also learned their jokes so well that they are able to flow in and out. Maybe they feel the crowd isn't going to be receptive to this set of jokes, so they pull something else that they might be receptive to. That's why comedians, make great screenwriters. They make great movies. It's because they've learned the art of writing from a long time. A long time they've learned the art of writing, and they've been able to convey a message in a very funny way. Yes, focus on the lesson before asking for slide. Yes, somebody got the name, Molly. Yeah, that's who Yvonne acted as. But like I said, focus on the lesson. The slides will come. The slides will come. After this class, you guys will get the slides. So don't focus on me. Just focus on the screen. If your screen is blurry, it has to be maybe your network. All right, let's continue. So let's go back to what I was talking about. I said style is what adorns the house, the window blind. Style is an author's thumbprint, unique and indelible mark, blah, 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 and blah. So authors don't only hone their style deliberately. Writing style emerged as a result of dedication, the author's own personality, and continuous experimentation with language and meaning. You guys I've already explained this part, but sometimes it's good to hammer on things a bit. Like I said, you can't be a great writer. And for anybody that hasn't seen Insecure, I know I've brought something up now that has, brought things up. But if anybody that hasn't seen Insecure, just go and watch it. Just go and watch it. Take time out, watch it. It's a very good show. It talks about the experience that women in America have, that we all find commonalities between. It's not just women, it's men, but just go and watch it. But that's not assignments. That one is for later. Let's focus on what we're talking about now. So, like I was saying, now, as we're going to go in depth in writing, we're going to have to take we're going to take an excerpt from two very well-known writers. Now, to illustrate what I mean, let's compare two examples of different writing styles from two different works of fiction. Each excerpt talks about the same dilemma: the destruction of a societal framework and the chaos that ensues. Now, but the approach they both approach this dilemma in uniquely stylish ways. So let me come again. I'm going to give you two illustrations, and I've already talked about the two writers that we're going to use just to quickly break down what style in writing is. Two different writers talk about the same themes, the same idea, the destruction of the societal framework and the chaos that ensues. So now this dilemma that they talk about, I hope everybody is following, because we're getting into the very nitty-gritty part of today's class. Now, the destruction of a societal framework and the chaos that ensues from it. Now, both writers take different approaches to this dilemma. They're talking about the same thing, but they take it in both very uniquely and stylish ways. So let's see who we are writing about, who we are going to dissect today. Now, we're talking about Things Fall Apart and Purple Hibiscus. I hope everybody has read. If you've not read Purple Hibiscus or Things Fall Apart, I don't know how you have not read it. In secondary school, that was the thing that they ironed into our heads during literature. Read Things Fall Apart. If you've not had the wonderful opportunity, I am jealous of you, to be able to read this book for the first time. I will not lie to you. I wish I could read this book for the first time, but I can't, sadly. Things Fall Apart and Purple Hibiscus. Now, readers first see the chaos in Things Fall Apart, a story that details more than just the tumultuous fall of one man, but accounts for the prospective demise of a culture. Okonkwo, the protagonist, is the symbol of Igbo culture. For this, he is likened to the falconer. He is described as being a merciless fighter who drinks his palm wine from the heads or the skulls of his enemies, and is deemed by his people as the greatest wrestler and warrior alive. For those of you that have read this, read Things Fall Apart, we know it's an incredible book. I've sat down to read this book in so many times, and I find myself just stunned by Chinua Achebe's use of words, how he describes things. As a writer, your ability to describe a situation, an event, this is a mental experiment. I'm going to give you guys an assignment at the end of the week. When we're done with it, I'll give you guys an assignment. But this is a mental just a mental experiment. Think of how your day went today and try and describe it in one, the most stylish way, and two, the most plain way as possible. That is just explain it the basic way. What did I do today? How did I go? Not everyone did Things Fall Apart in secondary school. It is fine. I understand that. Just take time out. Maybe one afternoon, find the book and just read Things Fall Apart and Purple Hibiscus. It's not an assignment, but just read it, dissect it. You will come back happy after reading that book. You'll be sad, but after you read it, you'll come back happy. So, as a strong man in society, in a society of men who have seemingly forgotten their strength, Okonkwo stands tall in objection as European missionaries threaten the way of life of his clan, Umofia. I'm not an Igbo man, bear with me. It is here that Chinua Achebe uses Okonkwo's character as a symbol of Igbo culture, in clear protest to white invasion. Unfortunately, Okonkwo, despite his cries, loses Umofia as it forsakes him and spins away, just as the falcon does. Falcon flies high, right into the hands of Western colonization. Now, let's look at Chimamanda's work. I'm right, Chimamanda wrote Purple Hibiscus, Abi. Correct me if I'm wrong. It has been a while since I've read this. But Eugene, the primary character, the protagonist, let me just give some, for those of us that don't know, the protagonist is the primary character. He is the one that moves the plot forward. Whenever you're writing about a story, your main character is supposed to be the one that moves the plot forward. He progresses, protagonist of the story. Now, Eugene, a primary character in Purple Hibiscus, described too much of the colonial product by his sister belongs to the post-colonial era that Okonkwo did not have the foresight to fear. Yes, thank you. The person that, yes, Chimamanda wrote Purple Hibiscus. Now, there's a dichotomy. Both characters talk about the existential threats that Igbo society faced when white people came. Now, it goes almost like it's the same story. There's a part in it, there's a part where it looks like both stories, just both of them are the same story, but just knocked down the line. Purple Hibiscus feels like there's no homework here to just bear with me. Now, let's follow this thought process. Imagine things fall apart as where your great-grandfather, their time, and Purple Hibiscus as your father's time. They are within the same timeline. Think about it like that. Still explaining both of the same thing. So now, as we keep going deeper, we'll begin to understand where both people, their ability to describe the same scenario in two different ways, 2 points of view. And point of view is a very important thing as a writer, because no two people will ever see the same events in the same way. That's the truth. If a car crash happens today and you call two people, they will have the same broad brushstrokes, but they won't have the same interpretation. Somebody might see how the car swerved off the road. Somebody else might see who the car collided with. Everybody's point of view sees different angles, different pieces, different points in the story. In life, that is how it is. And as a writer, your ability to not only describe an event, but see it from your own point of view and someone else's point of view is what makes a complete picture. As a writer, your ability to see your own point of view in a story, see someone else's point of view, makes a complete picture. And that is what writing is about. Your ability to describe an event, and then after describing the event, view it from someone else's point of view and add it there. As a writer, you have to be able to show both sides, sometimes 3 different sides of everything, because that is where your ability is shown. So let's continue. I was likely gone off track there. So Eugene is an Igbo man who puts on a British accent in the gracious, eager to please way. He always assumes with the white religion, seems to live in stark contrast from Okonkwo, the Igbo man who broke into high laughter alongside his clansmen when the European missionaries first came to evangelize. The resemblances between these relationships are uncanny. It is as if history has repeated itself. These similarities allow for an interesting thought experiment. So this is where I was going to. What if Eugene in Purple Hibiscus is the great-great-great-grandson of Moe in Things Fall Apart? Intertwining the two stories, reading Purple Hibiscus as a modern connotation of Things Fall Apart allow for some very compelling deductions. Some very compelling conclusions. It's important when we go through stories, you should be able to draw parallels between them. Take a movie that you like and a movie you don't really like. Your ability to draw parallels between them is what showcase your mind as a writer. Finding connections where there isn't connections. And we'll get into this in storytelling techniques. But one key thing you should remember is when you're looking at a story, you should be able to identify, when you're looking at two different stories, there has to be a way that, even if both stories aren't similar, that you can identify similarities within them. Because most writers will follow a set path when they are writing. Yes, there are mavericks that do come up with their own styles. But as a writer, your ability to also follow instructions, follow the path laid for you is very important. So, your ability to identify the similarities in each topic, in each story you're writing, each story you're reading, can help you in a long way with your own thoughts experiments, with your own explanation and your own understanding of it. Now, let's continue. But before we continue, let me ask, is everybody following? Is everybody understanding what I'm saying? Am I too outlandish? Am I too out of the way? Can everybody understand what I'm saying? Somebody say it's getting deeper. Yes, but this is the nitty gritty. This is the main thing we're talking about. When you're talking about writing, everything else is the garnish around it. As a writer, you must understand the fundamentals. And this is still the esoteric part of it, the outside perspective of it. We'll still go into the deep part. The deep part now is just teaching you the fundamentals. But first, you must understand from an outside perspective. You must understand the external part of writing. This is not, I'm not giving you guidelines now. I'm letting your mind ponder. I'm letting your mind do the thinking now. Because as a writer, one of the most important things you must be able to do. There's so many important things, I just keep spinning them. But they are very important things. One of the most important things you must be able to do as a writer is think. I can't tell you the number of times somebody has told me, hey, write this thing for me, write this article for me, write this script for me. And they just tell you what it is and they just go on their way and they leave you with it. You must now go and think. As a writer, you must be able to think. So this part of the class is opening your mind. I won't have done my job if I've not been able to open your mind to thinking differently, thinking in a weird way. We're taking apart two different sections of two people's stories so that we can understand the deeper meanings inside it. Because when you're a writer, you go through a point, you get to points where you give things in double entendres, where you're writing about one thing while explaining an entirely different thing. And both things mean two different things. But that same statement works. So let me give you guys an example. I have an example of a double entendre off the top of my head. No, nothing's coming to mind. But let's continue. Somebody remind me. Not in this class. Next class, tomorrow. Somebody remind me to give you an example of a double entendre. Does anybody even know what a double entendre means? That is something having two meanings. One statement having two different meanings. We'll continue on, but let's just, the nitty-gritties, they come out as they come out. Oof, it's getting hot. Let me take my jacket off. All right. So like I was saying, I am trying to open your mind to the nitty-gritty of writing. And like I said, you must be able to think differently. You must be able to think differently, think outside of it. The next section we're going to go into, we're going to be talking about the elements of writing. And when we talk about the elements of writing, that's where we'll just be, giving definitions and deeper explanations. But for this part now, we must understand the outside experience, the weird part of writing. That's the part that deals with your thinking and your thoughts. All right. Let's move to our next slide. Okay, so I've hammered on the esoteric, I've hammered on the outside, I've hammered on the weird parts of writing. Now we're going to go into the elements of writing. So these are the parts that we just, I didn't say take the pen and paper now, but we'll get there, we'll get there. Don't worry. Yes, picking some things that contrast to each other. Yes, that's it. That's a way to think about it. Double entendre is basically a word that is open to two different interpretations. Yes, you guys are following. Hey, that's what I'm talking about. Okay, so now we're going into the fundamental parts. Every author makes a key decision about their writing, and those decisions build over time into a cohesive writing style. What decisions they do make, in other words, what are the decisions they do make? In other words, what are the elements of writing styles? So we're going to go into this next section. I want everybody focused, because this is now what builds out your style. Your understanding of each point builds your style out. Because to have a style, you must know the elements, you must know what the foundations are before you can now experiment with it. Let me give you a good example. You can't experiment with a different dish. You can't experiment with jollof rice. Hey, let's follow with jollof rice. You can't experiment with jollof rice if you don't know the basic elements of jollof rice. Let's use jollof rice as our holding point now. You can't experiment with jollof rice if you don't understand the basic elements of jollof rice. Because when you understand jollof rice, the basic parts of it, rice, tomato sauce, pepper, and onions, the basic parts of it, then you can play around with it and come up with different takes that are not fried rice, but it's still jollof rice. You must understand the elements. Am I speaking, or am I speaking to myself? Am I speaking, or am I speaking to myself? Is everybody following along? You can't create something. As a writer, you can't experiment with different styles and different elements of writing if you don't understand the key fundamentals of it. It's like with maths, and it's weird, but it's like with maths. We follow the formulas, but it's only when we understand the formulas in maths, then we can now play around with it. That's why your lesson teacher will teach you a different method. Your teacher will teach a different method. You people will still end up at the same answer. It's through experimentation. But at the base level, they understood the fundamentals. So this is now the meat and potatoes of this class. This is the important section that we all need to pay attention to as well and follow. Again, these slides will be sent to you, so no need to try and take full notes. Just follow along and understand. You will get it. All right, let's continue. So, creative writing styles are honed through a combination of the following: your word choice, your syntax, economy, and concision, context, and purpose. I will explain what every part of this is, but there are more. There's a wide world of creative styles that you hone, but these four are the pillars of your writing style. Whatever it is that you want to do as a writer, you must understand these four parts. At the basic level, you must understand these four parts: your word choice, syntax, economy, and concision. Is the same thing. Economy, you're trying to economize your words. I've already started giving away the plot to that one. Then context and purpose. In what context are you writing from? And in what is the purpose of it? We'll get to all of it. So let's continue. Let's move. So that by 8 o'clock, we'll now take a break. Everybody will get ready, take attendance, and then we'll continue on. But before I continue, is everybody following? I use jollof rice to catch everybody's attention. Did I have jollof rice today? No, I don't have jollof. I've not had jollof rice in a while. So where did jollof rice come from? Anyways, I hope everybody is following. All following along. A little bit, okay, I'll slow down. Apologies for that. Am I going too fast? I've paused now. Everybody follow along. I hope everybody is following, making sure that they are understanding. Okay, I hope everybody is following along. We're about to now get into the main part of this discussion. Creative writing styles are honed through a combination of the following: your word choice, syntax, economy and concision, context and purpose. And let's explore each one in detail. Now, for word choice, also known as diction, word choice refers to the artistic decisions the writer makes in choosing one word over the other. How those decisions affect the meaning, mood, tone, and ideas conveyed to the reader. That is what word choice is. For anybody that is lost, just find your way to word choice and stay with us from here. We'll come back when we're eating. We'll come back when we are discussing the question and answer section. But let's be moving. Now, word choice refers to the artistic decisions a writer makes in choosing one word over the other. Now, take a look at the following two examples. Only one word has been changed in each of these sentences, and these words are synonyms. But the changed word has a huge impact on each sentence, how each sentence is read. Now, look at this. Nigeria beat Biafra during the Civil War. Nigeria subjugated Biafra during the Civil War. As you can see, changing beats to subjugated affects every part of the sentence. The sentence moves from neutral and informative to passionate and descriptive. The idea, once impartial, now comes across as heavily invested in the outcome of the Civil War. A word like subjugated transmits to the reader that Nigeria was extremely powerful, even suggesting that Biafra was a victim of the North. Small details such as word choice have a huge impact on writing styles. Let's consider another element. Let's consider the next element, syntax. Well, let me break this down before we move on. Changing the word beats. Look at it up there at the top. Nigeria beat Biafra during the Civil War. Nigeria subjugated Biafra during the Civil War. We've just changed one word and it takes on a whole different meaning. Now, your understanding as a writer to play on people's emotions, play on their mindset, play on the divisions within ourselves. We as human beings, we have divisions within ourselves. As a writer, your word choice is what determines how you play on people's emotions, play on the divisions, play on the fears that people have. As a writer, you must be able to master your audience so well that you're able to control them. That's why when you read something or you watch a movie and this part of the movie is supposed to make you cry, you will cry. It's because they understand word choice. They understand the way to use words to elicit a reaction from you. That's what word choice comes down to. Its ability to elicit a reaction. And why is this important as not just as a copywriter, but as a content writer? Your ability to elicit a reaction from your audience is what makes you either make sales or not make sales. Now, small details such as word choice have a huge impact on writing styles. Another important element to consider is syntax. So let's move to syntax. Now, this refers to the sentence structure, how rearranging the order of words impacts the meaning transmitted to the reader. It's closely related to diction, but the diction is concerned with the choice of words. Syntax is concerned with the arrangement of those words, as well as the length and complexity of sentences. Syntax is concerned with the arrangement of words, as well as the length and complexity of sentences. See it here? Take this part. Syntax is concerned with the arrangement of words. So now that you've understood what word choice is, you must now be able to differentiate between the arrangement of these words, how you put them, and then their length and complexity. What of syntax is innately learned, especially to native English speakers. For example, English sentence is typically structured with the subject first and then the verb followed by the object of that verb. So let's follow below. I know it looks like we're going through our secondary school days, but to understand the basics, you must go back. So now, the quick brown fox is the subject, jumped, the verb, over the lazy dog, the object. But let's use syntax now. If the daring writer wanted to complicate this syntactical order, they might write, over the lazy dog, the quick brown fox jumped. Of course, such experiments can prove dangerous, and the reader might misinterpret the construction or read it as shallow and pretentious. There's a lot of words I've used, but in essence, what I'm talking about is the way you put your words and sentences together is what makes you fully understand and appreciate what the person and the information the person is trying to put across. Nonetheless, paying close attention to the structure, length, and word order of the sentence can allow writers to develop their writing style. Here are some ways one might experiment with syntax. Structure, active to passive. The lazy dog was jumped over by the quick brown fox. We are playing with the same way. Length, the fox jumped over the dog. See? This same sentence we took from the beginning. The quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog. Subject, verb, object of the verb. That is how you structure your sentence. And then you can experiment. Look at this one. We're talking about length now. The fox jumped over the dog. Or the quick, sly, and daring fox jumped right over the lazy and motionless dog. Which of these two sentences, the one that has more words or the one that has less words, has conveyed the information to you? This was what we were talking about with the daring writer being able to complicate the syntactical order. I'm doing a lot of English. Let me calm down. Make sure everybody is following along. Is everybody following? Because I've said a lot in a very quick space of time, and I want to make sure that everybody is following. Right? Is everybody following? Let me ask this question again. We're talking about now length and why it is always good. You don't have to be too brief, but you have to explain. When you're passing information along, you can't just be explaining and explaining and explaining till thy kingdom come. Information must be passed along in the most simple. If you remember when I first met you guys, I said, as a writer, you have to sometimes explain things like you're explaining it to somebody in primary 5. Now, somebody in primary 5 has a good understanding, but they also have a very short attention span. And that's how majority of us are in general. We have a very good understanding of things, but we kind of have a very short attention span. Social media has done that to us, shortened our attention span, but we are still able to understand. So your ability to pass information along quickly in a concise manner is what gives you the best outcome. As a copywriter, as a content writer, whatever you're writing, it's not that it must be short, but you must convey the information quickly. So before we go on a break, we're about to go on a break, then we'll take attendance, we'll come back, we'll continue. As a copywriter, as a content writer, one of the first things I learned was that at your introduction, your first, in whatever paragraph you're writing, the first 2 or 3 lines is where is your opportunity to hold the reader's attention. If you can't hold their attention in the first 1 or 2 lines, you have missed it. Most of the time, they will move on to something else. In this day and age, where there are so many things vying for your attention, I'm not saying we should make our work as short as possible, but we should be able to get to the point in a manner that will keep somebody's attention so that we can explain more later. if you front load things, you load up the person that is reading. That's why most books we read, the beginning chapters are not as thick as the middle. The middle is where, when you read something as a beginning, middle, and end. The beginning whets your appetite, gets your attention, and the middle keeps you there. Right? Headlines must be able to catch readers' attention. Yes, headlines must be able to catch readers' attention. But as a writer, we'll get to that part of it. When we talk about measuring how successful a piece of content has been. We all know what clickbait is. I'm about to go on a break now, but we all know what clickbait is. And clickbait catches your attention. But it's the job of the writer now, because clickbait will catch them, they will come in. But if the content isn't still good, they will leave as quick as they came. So while the content might have a lot of views, but if you dig down into the content, when we're talking about script writing and YouTube and other things, we'll get there. But if the content does not keep them, they just read. After a few lines, this thing is too much for me, or it doesn't make any sense, they are gone. And you will miss it. So these are the nuggets that come out. All right. Let's go on a quick break. The attendance should be available to everybody. Attendance should be available to everybody. Normal dinner in the evening. So, like I said, let's eat dad and let's eat dad, two different things. But it's just the comma. Let's eat. No comma, somebody is eating their father. Comma, they are eating with their father. Simple as that. That's the best way I can explain punctuation and its use, or at least the use of a comma. Let's move on. Now, economy and concision. All stylish writers know how to use economy and concision. Concision. English. Oh. They know how to use fewer words, not more. See what I was doing? Everything is connected. You will just be following me. We'll get to the promised land. Now, they know how to make every word count. This is why we talked about word choice at the beginning. Everything leads into everything. We've talked about word choice. We've talked about syntax. Now we're talking about economy and concision. Being concise with your writing. As a writer, you have to know how to make every word count. Why? Because syntax tells us that if we are too lengthy, too wordy with what we're talking about, information will not be passed across quick enough. And as a writer, before we talk about writing novels, writing movies where you have leeway, writing scripts, we talk about writing. Now, I'm talking about the first activity, the first way you enter into writing as a writer. You talk about writing articles, you talk about writing blog posts. Your use of words, every word must count. Now, it's not that you say, because you're explaining something, you just make it as short as possible. But when you understand why every word must count, you can know when you don't need to use 4 words to explain something that can be explained with 1. I'll show you a very good example coming up. Now, there are certainly rules and guidelines for concise writing the economic writer must know. Firstly, you must avoid adverbs. Now, this is not a heavy English class. So for me to be explaining adverbs now, let me just give one example of an adverb. Adly, not adly. Father have mercy. Heavily. Heavily is an adverb. Add ly. Primary school, can you see? We're going back to primary school now. The use of strong visual verbs. You must employ prepositions sparingly. I hope you all know what preposition. Anybody that don't understand this set of things that I'm explaining, take a screenshot now. Don't write anything down. Take screenshot. Then go back to primary school English. Right? Let's eat that. You people are funny. All right. Do you get what I'm saying? Now, avoid using adverbs. Use strong visual verbs, not adverbs. Don't say the weight he carried. I'm not a top of the head man. Slowly, happily, yes, adverbs. Use strong visual verbs. He carried this load on his head. He carried heavily this heavenly load on his head. How about? Do you get what I'm saying? Even with this primary school, sometimes they teach you very important things. Can anybody hear me? If you can't hear me, it's your network. Can everybody see me? If you don't need to see me, just follow what we're talking about. Use adjectives where necessary. Use adjectives where necessary. Stay inside the active voice unless the passive is necessary, and provide only the important details. So let me explain active voice and passive voice. Active voice, Dipo is carrying his bags home. Dipo carried his bag home. Active. Passive, on his way home, Dipo. Let me not give you people. Let's not dwell on this for too long. But active is in the case of doing, the verb doing. Passive has been done. Active, Dipo is walking home. Passive, Dipo has walked home. Dipo has gone home. Active must be the key to whatever you're writing, while passive is the bag was carried by Dipo. Passive. God bless you. I love the people that are just following and just let's continue. We will understand everything when we get there. Provide only the important details. When you're crafting a narrative or a story, you must, and follow with me, you must provide the important details. Don't see Dipo has carried his bag home. Dipo is carrying his bag home. That's the important thing. The frog Dipo saw on the way, he don't follow in it. He don't follow with it. Important details. Mary had a little lamb. Little lamb, little lamb. Mary had a little lamb, little lamb, little lamb. Mary, what's the full distance? Jack and Jill went up a hill to fetch a pail of water. Jack fell down and broke his crown. See that? Important details. Important details. When you're taking, don't put the extra as part of it. And the best way to learn how to provide the important details really is with your nursery rhymes. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. If you see a crocodile, don't forget to scream. That's it. The important details. Rowing your boats, going gently. If you see crocodile, don't forget. That's it. They've explained everything in important detail. So if you want to know you are getting the important details, if it don't really rhyme or go together, it means you're adding too much. It means you're adding too much. All right, let's continue. Now, here is a clear and effective example. Now, follow along with me. We careened from California to Maine. California, state in America. Maine is state in America. But look at this word. We careened from California to Maine. Instantly, if you understand what careened means, that's driving wildly. Got to where they are going to. But I could have easily said, we drove wildly from California to Maine. But again, your word choice, your ability to know that you want to make every word count is important. Now, the Wordy writer has many reasons to make this sentence more complicated than it needs to be. Perhaps the reader does not need more information, but the writer might also be insecure about their own writing and are falling prey of this. Being so insecure about your own writing that you begin to load it with more things than it doesn't need. Look at this. Now, or else Insecure, but the writer might also be insecure about their own writing, or else they might think every detail needs to be on it. A tactic colored purple rose. A tactic colored purple rose. Look at that. It's just gibberish. But here is the understanding to that statement. Here is the above sentence written wordier okay. Here's the other word written more wordier, and the rules are broken from the above list. We were driven swiftly and without direction, careened in our little blue Chevy, somehow finding our way from California to Maine. See how they have used English to kill these statements. Again, the word careened could be maybe a bit excessive, but you could have also said we flew or tore the road from California to Maine. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. But look at it. We were driven swiftly and without direction in our little blue Chevy, somehow finding our way from California to Maine. It's just too much. It's just too much. Let's continue. Now, perhaps the little blue Chevy is important to the story. It does add some personality to the people in the car. Otherwise, this sentence is haphazard, conveying too much to the reader in too many words. You can convey a lot to the reader without using too many words. It's an art form. It's now your ability as a writer is where you are able to navigate all of this. Let's continue. The final bit. The final bit. Context and purpose. While an author's writing style is the product of their own artistic integrity, some creative writing styles develop in relation to context and purpose of the writing itself. And I'll explain what this means. Some creative writing styles develop in relation to the context and purpose of the writing itself. For example, an author might choose to write a murder mystery, a middle grade fiction book, and a historical account of the American Civil War. Each publication will have its own unique writing style because the writing serves a different purpose in each book. You can write the same thing. You can write a murder mystery novel taking in account of the American Civil War. A soldier mysteriously died during the American Civil War. Mystery novel. Middle school, that's a primary school fiction book. In that same American Civil War, you can talk about a soldier that took his men. Here's another old rhyme. The Grand Old Duke of York marched 10,000 men up to the top of the hill and he marched them down again. Now, you march your men up to the top of the hill, you march them down again. Is a nursery rhyme. But for the context, it can be a fiction. Maybe he didn't have 1,000 men, but he did march his men up a hill and march them down again. I'm really losing the point of what we're talking about. But there's fiction and you can write it there. But when you're talking about a historical account, then you use a different style. So whatever you're writing, the words you choose, the syntax you will use, everything, how economical you'll be with your choice of words, all stems down in the end from the context and purpose of what you are writing. Everybody follow along with me. This is the key part. Now, whatever you're writing informs how you write it. If you are teaching a primary school student, if you are writing a story for a primary school student, you will not load it with so many heavy grammar. If you are writing a mystery novel, you won't load it with very basic grammar because you are trying to fool the audience, because you don't want them to know who did what. And when you're writing a historical account, you want it to be straight to the point because you're explaining things that have already happened. And that's the basic explanation for context and purpose. Let's continue. We're almost coming to the end. In creative writing, the question of audience can matter a great deal. You wouldn't want someone with a hardball writing style to publish a romance novel in the same voice, nor would you expect a law critic to write poetry. These two things do not connect. They are not the same. While the audience should not define the author's style and intent, it is a necessary consideration in the editing process before a work is published. Write how you like, no problem. But when we are coming to edit this work, if you are writing for a specific set of people, you must change the way it is. This is why context and purpose is important. I'm going back so that we can see the through line of what we've been talking about and why everything fits. Then we'll skip back to the front. But I want you people to understand this thing. Creative writing styles are honed through a combination of the following. Your word choice. Your word choice is important because it lets you pick what words to use. Syntax allows you to arrange those words in a way that makes sense. Economy and concision allows you to compress all that information so that it doesn't get out of hand. And context and purpose now tells you the overall where we're going to and how we're going to put this thing out for who. If you don't follow in this through line, you miss it. That's why I say these are the bedrock of your creative writing styles. This is the bedrock. Let's move on. We finished now. I hope everybody is understanding the parts I'm talking about. Just quickly, we're almost coming to the end of this class. So I hope everybody is understanding what I'm saying. Again, you will get this material. You will read it for yourself. When you're now reading it, you'll now be hearing my voice. That's how me too I used to learn. When I've learned in class, then when I'm reading, I'll now be hearing my teacher's voice explaining those parts. Is everybody following? Let's continue. We're almost done. Oh, so I've already given it away. But this is the end of our class. I knew I was towards the end. Does everybody understand what has just gone on? Because I made sure to this is the last part. These are the elements of writing. These fundamental parts are what you will use to understand. Once you understand all of these parts, then when you're formulating a sentence, see, let's go back again. I want you to see the arrangement of how everything has gone up NEPA. Oh, you people heard that. Oh, wow. They are going to change over now. Anyway, those of us that are in Nigeria know what that sound was. But yes, we're about to go into our question and answer section. But let me explain this thing. Now, I hope everybody has been writing their questions. So that they can understand. Is a true line. There's a reason why I chose all of these things for everybody. So that we can all have an understanding. Of what is going on. Then after that, we'll now go into our questions. You guys can ask your question. I hope everybody has been writing their questions down. Because this one, it will not. Are we understanding? Write your questions down now. Let's go back and just quickly grasp. Because this, like I said, this is the main part. I said creative writing styles are honed through a combination of the following. There are more. There is more. There is more writing styles out there. But for your understanding, these four make up the bedrock of writing. Now, word choice, like I said before, your word choice is the words, how you pick each word, right? How you pick each word and in what way you use them. A simple example, we'll look at it again, is Nigeria beat Biafra during the Civil War. Same sentence. Nigeria subjugated Biafra during the Civil War. Two different sentences, all changed by one word, beat and subjugated. When you are writing, you must be able to take notes. Like I said in this part, you must be able to take note of what words you're using. Because when you're writing, you must be able to elicit emotion from whoever is writing it. And when we talked about context and purpose, let's use these two words as an example. For historical context, we will just say Nigeria beat Biafra during the Civil War. But to elicit emotion, as a copywriter, you must be able to elicit emotion and a reaction from whoever is reading it. You use the word subjugated because you know that word has a meaning that will pull people in. They subjugated them. That means they reign dominant over them. It has this just one word change makes the whole sentence different. And that's why as a writer, you must take notes of the words you use. Your word choice is important because that leads into syntax. Your word choice informs the way you will structure a sentence. Let's look at the quick example we had. At the bottom, it says, the quick brown fox, the subject, jumped over the lazy dog. Is a simple sentence. Oh, wow. Sorry, you guys, somebody here has found me. A side question, yes, I attended Funtaj International School. And I know who is asking that question. I'm not saying anything. I know who asked that question. We know as well. Small world. But let me explain. See this thing? Quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog. Your choice of words will explain. Your choice of words will explain and inform the syntax you use. We are coming to questions now. So I want to just go into the question and answer section so that when we finish that, we can now go to the end of the class. But I'm just, so that you guys can understand where we are coming from and where we've gone to. So, like I said, understanding the structure of your sentence and using the words carefully will be what inform your choice of words and each sentence you pick. People have started finding themselves on this comment section. Please, sir, can you take syntax again? All right, we'll go over it, but let's start the question and answer section. Let's start with question and answer section. It has been an amazing time teaching you guys. I'm so happy to have taught you guys today's lesson while coming back again tomorrow. And before we get into the question and answer section, the question sections now, everybody that has enjoyed this class, if you know somebody that was supposed to be here, you tell them to join. Remember, I asked you guys at our first lesson, you should think of a way to market this class. Now, I've come back again with it. Think of a way to market this class. And in our next class, when we start, I'll just ask you guys to give me some of the ways you've come up with, creative ways to market and tell people about this class. Because I'm teaching you how to communicate effectively and market and sell. If you can't do this, then I'm not doing my job. All right. Let's get into the questions and answers. Here. Yes, let me pick somebody's question here. He says, sir, in our last class, you warned us against using big grammar in order not to confuse the readers. So my question is, how do you balance word choice and not using big grammar? That's a very good question. And that will take us to context. I'm not going to go back yet, but that takes us to context. Now, the context and purpose of what you're writing will inform the word choice you use. Remember, I gave an example. I said you can write if you're writing a mystery novel, the words you use will be different from if you're writing for a primary school student. And if you're writing a historical account, you will need to figure out the words you use. So depending on the context of which you're writing for, of course, if you're writing a mystery novel, you want to use some kind of lexicon and some kinds of grammar, because you know the audience that is reading that are not small children. And even if you are writing a mystery novel for small children, you see what I mean? It informs what you're writing. You will know who and what you pick, because Agatha Christie novels are novels for preteens, teenagers, young adults. They are not her novels are not the novels my dad will read to get his brain hot and bothered. It's the same way. So depending on what you're writing, you by yourself will now figure out what words to use and how to go about using it. I hope I've answered your question. Let's see what's next. Remember, now that we're having our question and answer time, please go through and take attendance. Please remember to take attendance. We need to know who and who came for this class. Okay. Okay. Okay, please. Do emotions have something to do with the elements of writing? While emotions, remember what I talked about in the beginning of the class, somewhere along the lines, I said as a writer, now you can infuse your emotions into what you are writing, but how will I put this? Your job is to elicit emotions from your writers. Your job is not to put all your emotions into what you're writing to. Because if you are angry, but in this part of this part of what you're writing, you want your audience to be on the edge of their seat. You know, emotions, they change, right? So something might have happened to you before you write. Maybe you got into a fight with your significant other, and then you now come and write, and you're angry. But you now need your audience to be on the edge of their seat, anticipating something, and then you're not writing it in an angry manner, you miss it. Your job is to draw out emotions. So while it is useful to put your own emotions in, you must also be able to take yourself outside of it. That's why I said thinking, as a writer, thinking is a very important part, because how you think will determine what you write. So you must be able to think, how can I make this person feel this way? Because I keep bringing it to copy, because copy is about persuasion. And to persuade somebody, you must get a reaction from them. If you want somebody to do something, you can either get them to do it angrily, happily, or sadly, or with other emotions. So your ability to pull emotions out of them is what gets you what you need. Okay. Yes, for those of you that are asking, I will be tutoring you per week. So this week is me. You guys have me this week. Next week, you will get Mr. Sebastian. Okay, take context and purpose. I think anybody that's following now, let me just go again. Somebody's asking, can we take context and purpose? So let me link it back to what somebody asked, a very good question. She said, can you, let me put it back. Somebody asked, what did this person ask again? He said, yes, word choice. And this is for context and for people that are not understanding context and purpose. He said, I told you now, using big grammar is not always useful. So how do you now strike a balance between using big grammar that will pull your audience in and not pushing them away? So for context and purpose, it is in the context of what you are writing and who you're writing for. What is the purpose of what you're writing, and in which context is it in, that you'll be able to explain your writing. You'll be able to use and figure out your word choice. So context and purpose is simply in what context are you writing and for what are you writing? The purpose. What's the purpose of what you're writing? If you are writing to, let's use Nigerian politics now. Depending on who you voted for, these statements will either work for you or will not work for you. Our current leader, I'm not going to name anybody's name, is doing a terrible job of running the economy. That word terrible, the context of what I'm now writing, the purpose of what I've said is to elicit an aggravated emotion on both sides. I said our leader now is doing a terrible job of running the country. Context, the context now is the political system in Nigeria, politics. The purpose is to elicit aggravated emotion. People that will come to defend the statement that I've made, saying that yes, he's right, I've aggravated them. And the people that will come and say, no, I'm wrong, I've also aggravated them. So it's important. Okay, somebody is asking, can I drop my social handles? I did not prepare for this one. I will drop my social handles maybe tomorrow, our next class. Just remind me. Okay, what about economy and concision? Could you explain economy and concision? Being concise. Let's now take it like this. I studied economics, and anybody that knows anything about an economist, this very common thing they say about us is that we know how to economize, we know how to manage things. Abi? So, in the same way of your writing, you must be able to economize and maximize. Hell, the real meaning of economics is maximization, making the most. So, in economizing and being concise, when we say that, when I want you to think about it, when you're writing, being economical now doesn't mean that you're mising. It means that you're maximizing. You're making the most out of the sentence that you are trying to use, right? So don't think of economizing now or being economical or economy and conciseness as reduction. Think of it as making the most of, right? Think of it as making the most of every word you use. Don't just try and explain something with as most words as possible. Think of trying to explain it in the most concise way possible. If you still are not clear, shoot it back. When we go, I'll answer it again. I want to ask these questions. How do I easily capture my audience's emotion to get them interested and impressed with my words? The first thing I'll tell you is, don't try and impress your audience. If you're trying to impress your audience, you will miss it. Don't try and impress them. Try and show them who you are. And if they're impressed by who you are, they will stay. You trying to impress somebody means that you are now trying to engage in bravado, which might now make you want to use grammar that is not necessary. So follow it from this way. How do I capture my audience's attention? By using words that convey information quickly. That's the easiest way to get their attention, to capture their attention. When you capture their attention, you can now play with their emotions. But if they don't have their attention, if they are not focused, then you will never actually get their attention. So, sir, you are saying it depends on who we are writing for to know the right words to use. Yes, in essence, because this is a very important part of content writing, especially as a content or copywriter. If I'm writing for men, the words I will use will be different from the words I will use for women. That's a very simple explanation. If I'm writing for people in the north, the words I will use will be different from the people that I'm using in the south. Context is important. Context and purpose is important because you don't want your audience to miss what you're talking about. So the word choice is very important. That's why they say know your audience, know who you're writing for, know who you're creating for. You create for yourself, good and fine, but you must also be able to know who you're writing for, because if you don't know who your audience is, and that's why we took a class at the beginning of our last week, we took a class on I will go back to it, but I know it had something to do with audience. It's important. Knowing who your audience is, knowing who you're writing for will inform what you're writing about. Okay. Please, sir, you made mention that we should avoid adverbs. Yes, it being So adopting the word happily, joyfully, what should we replace it with then? Active verbs, visual verbs. Let me see. What can we replace? Let me see who is following along. What can we use to replace joyful and happily? You can say happiness, with happiness in her heart, with love in her heart. See? With joy. You are joyful. There's joy in your heart. With joy in your heart, right? Okay. We're almost coming to the end of our question and answer section, and there are so many questions. Any question I don't answer, save it for me. Put it at the end of the next class and fire me with it. Inspiration can come from anywhere. Movies, books, yes. You said as a writer, you have to write beyond your point of view. How are you supposed to see beyond your own point of view? This is a simple one. Remember what our parents would tell us. Remember to walk a mile in someone else's shoes. If you want to have a different point of view, just take somebody else's feelings into account. If you want to write about love, a novel now, where two people are vying for the attention of one person, how do you write from the other person's point of view? Just go and imagine you're the one that they are not getting the attention. Take it like this. If you are fighting or vying for the love of somebody else, that means somebody else might be winning, right? So if somebody else is winning, that means you're losing, right? So in that case, how will the person's attention be? So now, let's use me as an example. I'm trying to get this girl's attention, but there's a guy that is already having that attention. So to write from my own point of view that I'm the loser, I will now be the one saying, oh, she doesn't give me enough time. She doesn't answer my messages on time. She doesn't do this, that. Do you get? Then how do you now write, if you're not the one that is losing, how do you now write from the winner's point of view? Just take the opposite of what you're doing. So if me that is losing doesn't get enough attention, doesn't get replied on time, doesn't meet up on time, doesn't even meet up regularly, then the other guy is getting met up with regularly, messages are coming on time, he has the person's attention. Do you get? That's how you follow on another point of view. You must look at the other person and say, if I'm on this point, what is that other person missing, or what is that other person gaining? You figure it out from there. How can a writer get her idea in writing? Like somebody pointed out, writing comes from come from anywhere. Movies, TV, books, life. I'll use comedians as an example. Comedians draw their inspiration from real life situations. What is happening in the moment? That is when comedians get emotion. What is happening? That's why sometimes if you know any comedian, you will know that when they are looking at situations, they tend to be reserved because they are looking and observing on how to now express those things in a comedic way. So you can get inspiration from just watching people. Sometimes it's important. Just keep quiet throughout your day and just look at what is going on around you. Be observant. As a writer, be observant. Okay. We spoke about the similarities in the and proper discourse of chin. Yeah, I don't get the question. Somebody says you spoke about the similarities between Konko and Things Fall Apart and Eugene. You didn't get the link between the two of them. I can't see the similarities, as Okonkwo was seen as averse to colonization, and Eugene seems to have lost his identity and heritage as a colonial fanatic. Yes, see that thinking outside the thinking, right? Now you've tried to poke holes in my lecture. That's important, right? So, as you've said, you may not be able to see the similarities, which you're right, overtly. There are not many similarities between the two protagonists. But again, remember, what we talked about was not just the similarities in the protagonists and the two main leads. We talked about how both of their societies were broken down. And in the style of writers, both writers showed how their society broke down. And they took it from the point of view of two different individuals. Okonkwo was averse and fighting it, but eventually he was still overwhelmed. While Eugene did not fight it, which is wrong. He embraced it, which is wrong, because then you lose your heritage. Do you get what I'm saying? Let's go down. I hope everybody is following along. Economists and accountants are very stingy, even to themselves. We're not stingy. We just maximize. We make the most. In your last class, you regards content and copywriting. Do we need a hashtag to attract audience? Yes, you need hashtags to attract your audience. The right hashtag is like SEO for social media. It is what will put it in the right type of audience. But you don't just put anyhow types of hashtags. And we'll get into that when we're talking about social media. What can a writer do to ensure that they constantly have a flow of inspiration? Sometimes it's not necessary. So here this question said, somebody asked, what can a writer do to ensure that they constantly have a flow of inspiration? Sometimes you don't need a constant flow of inspiration. Sometimes just write like that. Sometimes just write nonsense. Just write nonsense and see how it looks, and then start playing around with it from there. Inspiration will strike in the moment of you playing around with it. So that's why sometimes I always say to my friends and those that I know as writers, I'm like, write the nonsense sometimes. If you feel like you don't have any expression, just be writing words. Before you know it, you'll be like, oh, this, that, and then the connections are made. And sometimes if you're not feeling inspired, it's not by force. Sometimes just leave it be, relax, go about your day. Especially if you have a deadline. The one thing you don't want to do is now overthink it, because you might just miss it. Okay, guys. Wow. Like I said, anybody that have not answered your question, just put it back in the comment section tomorrow's class. Of course, there will always be more questions. But we've spent a good time. I just want to thank everybody for coming. You guys have been wonderful. You guys have been incredible. It has been a wonderful day. And I hope to see you guys tomorrow. Tomorrow we're going to be talking about tone, the different tones in writing, and then grammar and punctuation. That class is going to be more of an interactive class because I'd like to hear back from you guys. So there will be times when I'll pose questions to you guys just to hear what you're thinking. Then at the end, we'll still have more question and answer sessions. Thank you, guys. It was a pleasure teaching you guys. I have had so much fun with you guys. It has been an incredible journey. You guys are the best. Honestly, you guys are the best. Thank you so much. It's been fun. I'm about to leave. If there's any more questions, just save it down there. More will come.
Have you ever written compelling narratives that resonate? SEO, optimizing your content for search engines. Copywriting, persuading your audience to take action. Platforms, creating content for different channels. We're talking blogs, social media, etc. Editing and proofreading, polishing your work to perfection. But it's not just about learning the rules. It's about finding your unique voice and style. You have opportunities to practice, get feedback, experiment with different writing forms, And by the end of the course, you'll be confident in crafting content that makes a difference. If you're ready to find your unique voice and utilize your writing potential, subscribe to this YouTube channel and follow us on all our social media platforms.